Rice Ridge is a deeply stratified archaeological deposit on Kodiak Island in Alaska, dating to around 7,600 to 4,200 years before present. It has a well-preserved faunal assemblage, including an extensive bird bone assemblage associated with the Ocean Bay tradition. One study has shown that birds are an important part of the lifeways of Ocean Bay groups, but this has not yet been investigated on Kodiak Island, where Alutiiq ancestors have been conventionally portrayed as primarily dependent on marine mammals and fish. To determine the extent to which birds were used on Kodiak, we studied bird bones from 4 of the 16 excavation units at Rice Ridge. We specifically analyzed skeletal representation, taxonomic breakdown, and bone modifications to infer how the people at Rice Ridge were using birds. Starting with skeletal representation, we compared the minimum number of individuals, or MNI, represented in each of the 4 skeletal regions to look at how bird carcasses were being processed. Wings were the most represented region, followed by the pectoral girdle. Since most bones were found in midden contexts, this shows that wings were the most discarded region. Wings are typically removed when producing bird skins, but not when the only use of the bird is as food. This implies that birds were sought out for their skins and not just for food. Next, looking at taxonomic breakdown, we see that 84% of all birds belong to the following groups: ducks, geese, Phalacrocorax species, or Cormorants, and Uria species, or murres. There are 16 different classifications of duck, the most abundant of which was Somateria mellissima, or the common eider, which made up 24% of all bones identified as duck. Bone modifications are broken up into 2 categories, cut marks and burn marks. The locations with the highest frequency of cut marks, shown in dark blue on the left, indicate regular disarticulation of the wings and feet, which could be evidence of either skin production or of butchery. The frequency of cut marks in these areas is similar across all taxa. While burn marks are present on numerous elements, the most common occurred on both ends of the humerus and of the coracoid. In conjunction with a high frequency of cut marks in this area, this pattern of burning leads us to believe that wings were being disarticulated from the body prior to the cooking of the birds. Skeletal representation analysis shows that birds were likely being used for skins. This can be supported by our analysis of bone modifications. Less than 5% of all bone fragments were identified as terrestrial species, indicating a heavy exploitation of marine birds. Marine birds have dense, waterproof feathers, making their skins ideal for clothing in the cold, wet climate of Kodiak Island, which is why they are sought out for this today. Here you can see an example of a modern Yupik parka made from bird skins. Our analysis of bone modifications also shows that birds were a likely source of food. We do not know what percentage they were of the ancestral Alutiiq diet, but the cut and burn marks indicate butchery and roasting of the birds. We are therefore able to infer that birds were used both as food sources and to make bird skin clothing. The relative abundance of the top 4 taxa is similar between unmodified, cut, and burned bones, with ducks and cormorants being more abundant than geese and murres. However, ducks make up a significantly higher percentage of both cut and burned bones than of unmodified bones, 40% and 36% versus 28% respectively. This is likely indicative of processing practices and not of ducks having a different use than other taxa. Our analysis so far has focused on the cultural use of different bird taxa. We are planning to conduct stable isotope analysis to look at ecological changes over time, as well as which species of geese were present, as these are difficult to identify based on morphology alone.